I said, you keep that guy out of the studio. I don't know him. I don't want to know him. And that was just kidding, of course, but she thought I meant it. And so I don't know if she played hard to get with the interview or not, or did she book it right away?
Actually, it took a couple of tries for us to connect. So, yeah.
It's our girl.
That's it. We just got to keep her sharp. But anyway, Beau Phillips, are you kidding? How more grateful could I be to anybody? Beau Phillips is the man who hired our show in 1989. Beau saw me get fired from a company for bad attitude, bad-mouthing the company, knew I had a drug problem, and said, I think this is what KISW is looking at.
He's the perfect fit.
It's our guy.
Right? You knew all of that
I
stuff.
found our guy, exactly.
And the real story that wouldn't be in his book, because it wouldn't be as interesting to the general audience, is he flew me out here for an interview. And as I was getting ready to leave the radio station I was at out there, and believe me, I was high. Boy, it's legal here now, too. How ironic. But someone from the newspaper called and said, we hear you're looking for a job. And I said, damn right. I'm flying out to Seattle right now, and I'm going to leave this trash hole. And they printed it in the Baltimore Sun. So Beau is flying me in. And then, by the way, everything in his book that he tries to do is a disaster. Right? You're just trying to keep these rock and roll people straight.
Right.
And we're all crazy.
Right.
And so you tell it. You're flying me out, and what happens?
Well, there's a variety of things happened, but one of the things happened is that you and I were sitting in the Westin with our boss, who had to approve hiring you. And you charmed them, and I already knew that I wanted to hire you. And they took me aside and said, look, if we hire Bob, you've had a couple of failed efforts here. You had some morning shows that didn't work. If we hire Bob, and we agree he's great, and Bob doesn't work, and we have to fire him, you're going with him.
No!
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let me hug you.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. I have to hug him. Seriously, you took that chance?
While they hug, I will say, so Bob is here for about a month, and then he winds up. No.
Well, when I went to rehab,
Buy the book.
Oh, you're gonna go there. Okay.
They didn't fire you,
You know
right?
how book sales work, guys?
By the way, Beau was like, we'll talk about the other stories besides KSW because I don't want it to be awkward. I said, Beau, if this isn't awkward, this
then
not
why
gonna
be
fun.
here?
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
So no. Everything. 25 years. There's no secrets from.
Oh well, you're not going to talk about when we picked you up and admitted you.
Yeah. Well, that you could. I don't care.
Okay.
But it was really weird. Some of those stories are exaggerated. But a lot of it's deadly true.
Well, that's the same thing in my book. Is that some of them are slightly exaggerated, but the reality is all that stuff happens.
So all right. So they pick me up for the job interview, and what has happened is the Baltimore Sun wrote an interview about how I don't care about Baltimore and I'm heading off to Seattle for a job interview, and they faxed it to the current morning show.
Oh, they LeBron James you.
Oh, I know. They LeBron James me, and they faxed it to the morning show that wasn't working out, that he hadn't figured out how to tell that he was going to fire me.
Very nice.
That's right.
Fax was brand new technology at the time.
By the way, Beau Phillips fires, everybody he fires goes on to greatness. He fired Jimmy Kimmel.
No.
Didn't you?
No, it wasn't me. It was a guy who used to work at KISW named Larry Sharp. And Larry, I fired Larry, and then Larry ultimately surfaced as the program director of KZOK.
Oh, that's right. KZOK fired Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah. Larry fired Jimmy Kimmel when he was a 19-year-old jock looking at his first radio job.
Couldn't see the potential there. For anything.
No.
All right. So welcome, Beau. The book is called I Killed Pink Floyd's Pig. And Spike knows this story. I do not know this story, but I know a little bit about it. You were supposed to do something for Pink Floyd, and you made a demand.
Well, no. What happened is that Pink Floyd was playing in the Kingdom, and they sold out the show, 55,000 seats. And I thought it would be a cool promotional stunt to fly their famous pig over the radio station,
which is very cool. Yeah.
Well, it's the showpiece,
and
of
also
their
a quick way to locate a hooker on Aurora Avenue. If you want one.
It took a lot of effort to do that. So I called the band and said, "Look, I would like to borrow your pig. Would you send me the pig that famously flies out over the concert?" And they said, "You're out of your mind. I mean, that's really the centerpiece of our show. We hook it to a mechanized
why would
track.
they give it to you?
Yeah, I mean, if anything were to happen to that, we'd be screwed." And I said, look, nothing will happen. I swear in my life, loan me the pig. I'll guard it. We'll take good care of it. So they shipped this crate that weighs 320 pounds. It's kind of a light pink canvas.
They shipped it to you.
They shipped it to
These
us.
were the old days. By the way, record companies used to really schmooze radio programmers.
Yeah.
You had a lot of power to
That's-
get that pig.
Look, just as a quick aside, there
Tables have
was
turned.
there was no Pandora, there was no file sharing, there was no satellite radio. If you were a fan of rock, you listened to the radio, and you know that from your days. So,
If you were a record company and you wanted someone to find out about your record, there was no Facebook.
Right.
You couldn't put it on YouTube.
Right.
You had to go through Beau Phillips.
shudder the thought.
How much free stuff did you get back in the
Oh,
days?
I got
all
plenty
the
of free stuff.
payola, all that illegal.
No,
Could we
I was
is
too
any of that in the book, or you would tell all only about other
I
stuff?
was too stupid to take payola. When record guys came to me and said, "What would it take to get you to play this record?" To me, I was thinking, I don't know.
Give me that pig.
When
give me the
pigs
pig.
fly.
That's right.
So they send you the pig. It's in a giant crate.
It's in a giant crate.
This is the one they take from city to city,
Yes.
concert to concert.
This is the pig that Roger Waters created when they put out the album Animals, and he flew this pig over the London Harbor until the tethers broke, and the pig broke free and soared 30,000 feet over London to the point where they had to shut down Heathrow Airport until they could retrieve it.
They'd had some experience screwing up promotions too. So the pig arrives at KISW.
Pig arrives. We hoist it up on the roof. We fill it with helium and tether it down, and it's flying about 80 or 100 feet above the radio station. And it's the darling of the town. I mean, the news copters are circling. People are driving by and taking pictures and creating congestion.
Great
on Aurora.
promotion. Wonderful.
So everything's going great. It's 6 a.m. and it's the day of the concert, and I get a call from our morning guy, who
Who's
says,
the morning guy of the time? You had like 6 of them before I
yeah,
got
it's
there.
really hard. It was Wheel of Morning shows back then, so I don't recall. And they said, I pulled into the parking lot. It was dark, but I swear the pig's not there. And I said, oh, come on, man, the pig's got to be there. It's all tethered down. And they said, no, and I'm flashing back on when it's flying over Heathrow Airport. I said, it's a little lighter now. Go outside and check again. And he comes back huffing and puffing. He goes, no, pig's gone.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, now it's 6 a.m. I got 6 hours that I have to deliver it before Big Floyd's stage manager kicks my butt. So I fly into the radio station. It's not there. I climb up the ladder on the side of the building, and there it is. It's draped over all of the air conditioning and rocks on top of the
Deflated.
building.
Deflated.
It's deflated.
It's killed.
It's deflated. So I'm thinking, what could possibly have happened? And I walk around the pig, and I'm lifting up parts of it, trying to find out what happened. And I come upon this long, shiny object and realize it's a hunting arrow.
The pig has been impaled.
The pig has been impaled. Somebody shot
Shot
the
the
pig
pig.
with a professional hunting arrow.
Little ironic, there was a Ted Nugent tour across town that same day that no one was going to go
Wow.
see.
Yeah.
And so now, now Pink Floyd expects you to return this
yes.
pig in
and
pristine
now
condition.
it's got this big 3-foot L-shaped gash right in the chest of the pig. And I'm thinking, I don't even know where to
Did
start.
they have to put it down, or were they able to repair it?
Well, we ended up getting this thing off the roof, stuffed it in the van, and meanwhile, I had interns trying to find some place that can do emergency surgery
Right.
on a pig. So somebody had the bright idea to call a parachute company in
That's what I would
town.
have done.
Yeah, and I didn't tell him what it was. We brought this enormous ball of fabric in. I didn't tell him what it was. I just said, I need you to fix it. And he goes, well, I can do it right now, but I don't have materials other than some patches I can put on it, and I don't really have anything that's pink that matches. And I said, what do you got? And he goes, well, I got this kind of orange pink fabric. And I said, put it on. So he sews up this pig. And meanwhile, now it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock. I have to have it at the Kingdom at noon. So he puts this patch on, and I'm looking at it. It's obviously not a good,
It's not
clean
gonna look
shot.
right.
Not going to
No.
look right. But we stuff it in the van. We'd fly it back into the Kingdom. Literally at 11:59, we come screeching into the backstage door. The roadies are there standing like this, waiting for the pig. And we just shove it out of the van, and they grabbed it and took it into the Kingdom, and nobody said anything, and I didn't stick around. So that night, I go to the concert, and the song comes on called In the Flesh, which is the cue for that pig to come flying out on the track. And here it comes, and the crowd's going nuts, and all the spotlights hit it, and I can see that big patch right in the pig's chest, but everybody was going crazy, and either they were too high or didn't notice or couldn't care. But the pig flew, and it held the helium, and I never heard another word from Pink Floyd.
And this is a recurring theme in the book, by the way. I hot chaptered it. I picked stories that I want to, because I don't have time to read your whole book.
No, who does?
I do. I will. But I wanted to be prepared for you today. And so there's a recurring theme here.
That one chapter where Meatloaf gets shot in the ass with an arrow. prior to the
No, what it is back then there was so much debauchery.
Yeah.
And so much damage, property damage could be done that today you would call the police.
Yeah.
Back then, some guy would whip out a wad of $100 bills and go, "What did Joe Walsh do to the hotel room?"
Right.
And he would just pay for it. And you have two stories like that. The Joe Walsh one, we were there for that, of course.
Yeah.
Joe Walsh was a guest DJ for a week
Right.
on the radio station. And you paid him how much?
$10,000.
What a great deal.
Oh, yeah.
At the time. And, of course,
Got Rick, the bass player, to boot for that.
Yeah.
Rick, the bass player.
That's
And
right,
was
yeah.
his manager Smokey?
Smokey Wendell was his kind of road manager, the guy that was hired to keep Joe on the rails.
And Joe only in recent years has gotten complete sobriety and is quite amazing and,
Yes.
and brilliant. But he was brilliant even not sober.
Yeah.
And Joe Walsh shows up at the radio station and basically takes over the station for a week. Now, you were one of the great program directors in the whole country, and I'm not just shining you on and grateful because you gave us a job, and we're still somehow on the air. But you did these promotions. You did these things that no one else could or would think of. And yet people don't know how much you had to put up with, because Joe Walsh had a reputation of destroying hotel rooms. So you put him in, was it
The
American?
Sheraton.
The
He put him in
Sheraton.
the Seattle Sheraton downtown.
And he was so famous that they said to you, "Joe Walsh, what are you, crazy? And he's going to wreck the room." And you said, "No,
He doesn't do that anymore.
he doesn't do that stuff
No.
anymore." So what did he do?
I didn't find out until afterwards what Joe did, because the Sheraton was kind enough to comp us a room for Joe and for Smokey in a beautiful suite. And afterwards, they called me and said, "Who's going to settle Joe's bill?"
They didn't even tell you there was a problem. They just said,
No.
"Who's going to settle
Who's
the
going to
bill?"
settle this $10,000 bill? And I said, "Well, you comped me the room." And they said, "Oh, no, your rooms are comped." And I said, "Then what's the bill for?" And they said, "Well, there's about $1,700 in booze." Now, Joe was there for a week. He had booze delivered in from everywhere. And I don't know who he had in there or what he did with it, but anyway. And I said, "So what's the other $8,300 for?" And they said, "Well, Joe shredded everything in the hotel room that could possibly be shredded." And I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "Towels, blankets, bed sheets, curtains, anything that could be shredded was torn into thin strips and piled in the middle of the room." And they walked in and found this enormous pile of fabric.
Like a big ball of yarn
Like
that
a
you would
big-
go see somewhere. Yeah.
So that's how Joe spent his free time drinking and tearing the room apart. And we had to pay for new curtains and bath towels and
Life's been
blankets.
good to me
So-
so
Yeah.
far.
That's right.
So
They
wait a
say
minute.
I'm crazy, but I have a good
Beau
time.
Phillips, pay for it all.
Yeah, keep going with that. That was a fun week. I remember that week.
Yeah.
They played a show at Parker's.
Yeah, they did a
Halloween
free show at
Parker's.
Yes, Joe is an awesome guy.
Joe
He
did a
really
free
is.
show for the radio station. By the way, where this was at in Joe's career was people were like looking at him like, is he going to survive?
He was in a
Right.
serious valley of peaks
He was
and
in a
valleys.
serious valley, which is
Yeah.
why he would take 10 grand from a radio station and he would
Right.
shred the whole hotel room. But people would the interview question that we asked him was, when are the Eagles going to get back
Yeah,
together? And
that's
he
right.
would always say, when hell freezes over.
And or when Don Henley and Glenn Fry run out of money.
He did say that. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so right
came
after
through first?
this, or wasn't it while he was at the radio station, that the call came and the Eagles were reunited?
That's right. Yeah. No, Joe was living for the day when he got the call saying we're ready to go back together again. Because Joe's the kind of a guy who's a musician who just loves to play, and he doesn't care who he plays with. But yeah, we were in my office, and the receptionist leaned in and said, "Joe, you have a call on line one." And we put it on the speaker, and it's Irving Azoff, the manager of the Eagles, saying, "Joe, we're getting the band back together. Are you in?" And Joe was just, that was the call he'd been waiting.
He was so
years
excited
for.
he had to shred every piece of
Everything in Beau's
hotel
office right now. Bring me back.
upholstery. And so, but here's the funniest epilogue to the story is you have to call Smokey and tell him that Joe did $10,000 worth of damage in
Yeah.
the hotel.
Right. And Smokey said, "Just send me the bill." Without flinching, without missing a beat. It's like, this happens all the time. Don't worry about it.
Right. And think about that. You paid Joe Walsh
10
10
grand.
grand. He spent it destroying the hotel.
Right.
Joe Walsh's net income?
Zero. Yeah.
But he got a great hit out of it.
So like we said, they say I'm crazy, but I have a good time.
Yeah.
It's so funny, Bo, because I've always known that I kind of, in a way, owe my career to you. You're the first guy who hired me, but I kind of owe my wife to you, too. I never really thought of it that way.
Really?
Yeah.
He fixed you up with your wife?
Well, in an indirect way, yes, he did.
How did that happen?
How that happened was,
You owe your daughter to him, too, then.
yeah, in a sense.
How would you like her?
Well,
Bathe,
first I'll tell you how.
That's the way we
Princess
used to.
Leia
That's the way
bikini
we used
setup?
to treat program
Sure.
directors. No more.
First,
What's it going to take, Bo?
I'll tell you how I owe my career to Bo first is we worked for an insurance company, and it was nationwide. Drug testing was going to go into effect because it was an insurance company in June, the end of June 1990. Well, I was an intern. I'd worked for zero from January of 90 to June of 90. And the day before drug testing was going to go into effect, Bo hastily rushed my paperwork through corporate and got me hired.
I
None
need
of
this
us-
one through before midnight on this date.
Right. And after that, I would have had to take a drug test.
None of us would have passed the drug
Well,
test.
yeah, and that was the thing.
Steve Slayton would have passed the drug
Yeah.
test.
He's here, by the way.
I know.
Do you know
I
he
had
does the
dinner with
afternoon
him.
show?
I
here?
had dinner with Steve the other night. yeah.
Oh, cool.
And the
Thanks for not inviting me.
and the way I met my wife was at that Joe Walsh show. I met my wife's twin sister at that concert at Parker's, and we got to become friends. And then I met my wife. If you'd never brought Joe into town, there's no way I would have ever met Christy, who is Kelly's twin, and I would have never met my
Right,
wife.
if you didn't bring Joe into town, then this downtown Joe never would have gone to the towel shredding after party in
Right.
which he met his wife.
Yeah.
The irony is there was a pair of twins that Joe had asked for the after party. And Joe passed out, and our Joe got one of the sisters.
Still so many sheets to shred. I'm going to need some more help.
You know, I should say, Bob, that first of all, I appreciate all the things you're saying. You've made me look like a hero. You know, there was a time when I took a shot on hiring you, and I can't tell you, there must be 50 people in town who say I was the guy that was responsible for hiring Bob Rivers. Everybody's taking credit for all that you guys
But you were
have
the
done.
guy. You put your whole career on the line.
Yeah,
If he goes over,
Dumb
you're-
move.
You're going with him. That's a great look.
yeah, yeah.
Well, this
That was
is,
the nationwide "we're on your back." Yeah,
yeah.
philosophy.
And then they sold the radio station at a massively huge profit too.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
got out. They
That's
said,
for
we're
sure.
we're done with this rock and roll stuff.
We scared them. They were, they used to call me and say, "We like collecting premiums. We don't like paying claims." and all I did was create grief for them, and that's ultimately what got me fired. Is that you look at the book and you look at all the things that we did, and you say, "This is a radio station owned by an insurance company." You know, they were very uncomfortable with
I
that.
don't want to give away all the stories. It's funny. I read your book now. I don't want to give away all the stories because
Yeah.
I have a way of giving it all away. But there's a story in there about Robin and Maynard and us and a battle we did that involved homeless people. And all I have to say is I'm embarrassed a little that we did it, but it's a great story. So you got to buy Beau's book if you're a rock and roller in Seattle because just about every story was that era, right? When you were here,
Yeah,
most of them.
Yeah,
Anyway.
what it is I Killed Pink Floyd's Pig is 35 stories of things that I witnessed because back in the day, like we were saying, bands love to have a relationship with radio stations. The more that they could get liked by a radio station, the more likely we were to play their music. And we were really the only outlet. And at the time, KISW had a reputation for being very friendly to new bands and breaking bands and trying new bands. And we were invited everywhere. And at that point, when I got calls from bands and say, "Come backstage, come to our hotel room, come to,
Whose
our
phone is ringing?
Bose.
It's mine.
Oh.
Hey, Bo, if somebody's going to interrupt the guest, let
Joe
it
Walsh.
be the guest.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a child you don't know about here in Seattle.
Yeah, exactly.
I was at a Parker's concert for Joe Walsh, and this wonderful man with a bushy mustache made sweet passion of love to me, and now I've got this beautiful girl.
So I got invited backstage to a lot of these things, which in itself isn't funny, but all the stuff that I saw around me was insane. And I thought, after too many people saying, "You got to write this stuff down," I just did. So if you're a fan of Zeppelin and the Stones and all of that, these are
Remember me?
never
We made
be.
love aboard a big inflatable pig.
And especially though, I mean, this is interesting all over the world for rock and rollers, but especially Seattle because
Yeah.
a good portion of these stories take place right here.
Yeah. There's one, if I could, that happened just down here from you at the Edgewater. And this is kind of a funny story because, and it's particularly relevant here, is that Led Zeppelin played in Seattle in 1969 and stayed at the Edgewater. Back in the day, if you're a longtime Seattle resident, the Edgewater used to have this campaign where you could fish from your window.
Yeah.
Where you could actually go to a bait and tackle shop in the lobby, get your worms and your pole, and go out and fish. Now, in '69, Zeppelin caught a mud shark. And there's a very famous story that I cannot relate on your station about what happened, but it was so heinous that Led Zeppelin got banned for life from ever staying at the Edgewater again, and they closed the bait and tackle shop.
They shut it down.
Shut it down and stopped the fish
Why
from your
can't
window.
you tell the story on the air?
The fish actually went through years of therapy afterward and sued the hotel.
It had to do with willing naked groupies, the mud shark, and body cavities.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, Zeppelin gets banned for life. But I met the manager of the Edgewater Hotel, and he said 8 years later, what nobody has ever heard, and if you're a fan of Led Zeppelin, lean into your radio. Zeppelin checked in the middle of the night before online reservations.
So wait a minute. Zeppelin, who was banned for life,
Returned
to that
to the
hotel.
Edgewater Hotel. They checked in the middle
And
of the
you
night.
got them in there.
No, I had nothing to do with
Yes,
that.
you had to. No, you had to be you.
It was another KISW stunt.
Okay.
So my friend who's the manager of the Edgewater says, I come to work in the morning and Zeppelin has now taken 10 rooms before online reservations. And they don't travel as Jimmy Page and Robert Plant. It's, Joe Smith and Spike O'Neill or whatever they call themselves.
Oh, yeah, they don't go, right. So
Yeah.
they would check in under other names.
They check in under names.
How are they ever going to enforce the ban?
So the manager of the Edgewater calls the Richard Cole, who's Zeppelin's tour manager, and says, welcome back to the Edgewater. If there's anything I can do, let me know. But really what he was saying was, I got my eye on you because I know what you guys have done. Anyway, Zeppelin stays there for 2 days without incident. Everything is nice and clean. So they're about to check out, and my friend, the hotel manager of the Edgewater, calls the head of housekeeping and said, how did their rooms look? And she goes, they're fine. Everything is good, except for one thing. All the TVs are gone. So he says, stay there. And he runs down the hall and opens up the first Zeppelin suite. And lo and behold, the TV's gone and the wind is blowing the curtains. So he pulls back the curtains, peeks out the window, and there's not one but 5 televisions floating in Elliott Bay.
Who knew televisions could float?
Exactly.
There's only one way to find out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he goes back to the front desk, and here comes Richard Cole's manager to check out. And he walks up to the front desk and hands him the bill, and it's for $3,000. So Richard Cole, Zeppelin's manager, reaches in his pocket, pulls out an enormous roll of hundreds, and peels off 30 and hands them to the Edgewater. And the manager says, look, I also have to charge you for the TVs that the band threw out the windows. And without stopping, Richard Cole goes, how many did they toss? He said, well, there's 5 TVs. They're $500 each. I need another $2,500. Reaches back in his pocket, pulls out 25 more $100 bills, hands them over. Meanwhile, the only other person there was a young desk clerk who says to Zeppelin's manager, I've always heard rumors that you guys trash hotel rooms and throw TVs. I didn't think it was real. What does it feel like to take a TV, go to the window, and dump it in the bay? Zeppelin's tour manager comes up to the kid and goes, there's some things in life you just have to experience for yourself. And he reaches in his pocket, pulls out the wad of money, peels off $500 bills, and says, kid, go toss a TV courtesy of Led Zeppelin.
That boy was a young stone gossip.
Stone Gossard, yeah.
Are you staying at the Edgewater while you're here, Beau?
I think I've been banned too now that I let that out.
And now that they have the facial recognition software, you can't do it. Wow. Hey, when did you lose the mustache?
When it started going grayer than the rest of my hair. It looked like I was dyeing my hair, and I just said,
I almost didn't recognize you without the porn stash.
Yeah, I know. Me and Tom Selleck.
Yeah, that's right, because it just changed.
Yeah.
Wow. What are you up to these days? What do you do?
I do a marketing consultant. I left radio after I saw you, and I moved to.
Sure.
Well, no. I left radio.
After the last time we spoke.
Really? Yeah.
I said, are you sure you want to stay in this wacky
came
business?
out all wrong. Yeah. No, I left radio when consolidation started and moved to New York as the head of marketing at MTV Networks. Okay. And there I got a chance to play on a national level. Some of the stories in there's a fun Stone story in the book about some of my exploits at MTV. But I did that for a few years, and then I opened a marketing company, and that's what I do. I do marketing consulting for Amazon, for Nintendo, for companies like that.
And if something goes wrong, do you peel out a wad of $100 bills?
Yeah, I carry a big wad.
No, those days are gone, aren't they?
Gone.
I mean, today everything is fill out a form. We got to do a 1099. You got to do this. You got to do that, and every penny it feels like is accounted for. People can't walk around, except that we played in Baltimore last week. And so maybe it's an East Coast thing, but we did a thing, and at the end of the night, the guy was just like, and I was like, do you need some paper? No.
I have to tell you that because I've done several radio interviews on the phone. I wanted to come here just because of my history in Seattle, and seeing you guys is really wonderful again.
Yeah, you invited Steve Slayton to dinner, I know.
Well, I was invited to Mike
He
West's
said he had
house.
such a wonderful time with
Yeah.
Steve Slayton.
It was nice that I got to see you only when you're stuck here sitting at my microphone.
But I can't tell you how many jocks that I've talked to around the country who said, do you know Bob Rivers? You were in Seattle. Do you know Bob Rivers? I mean, you are really the ambassador for the radio industry now.
Well, because of the Twisted Tunes across the country.
Yeah, but there's other people who know him. Brother Weeze, guys like that. They
Oh, yeah,
know
there's some
you.
Weeze
great
is the
people around the
best.
country.
Yeah.
We used to always see him at a convention. In fact, I remember seeing you at a convention.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, was it Ray Romano?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said,
Oh, no,
this-
it was Brad Garrett from
Brad Garrett. That's
from
right.
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah. He says these guys have a new show. It's going to be pretty good. I think Everybody Loves Raymond, and you were with Brad Garrett. He goes, let's go out to dinner and let them tell you about the show.
Right.
And it was who is Ray's brother on the show.
Yeah, exactly. Good memory.
Yeah.
Life good? Are you, now, what's your family situation?
I just finally, it took a few decades, but I found my soulmate, and I live in Washington, D.C. right now with her. And she runs the #1 radio station in America.
TOP.
Yeah.
WTOP, the news station.
Yeah.
She's powerful.
Yeah, I steer clear of her, boy.
Yeah. You better be careful.
I tell you.
Condoleezza Rice.
Wow, so
Are
you've
you
got
with?
a hot,
You and Condi?
you've got a hot, solid career wife. I wasn't going to say trophy because that's not what people typically call
Yeah.
trophy. But
Yeah.
you've got a very amazing wife.
Yeah, I do.
What's her name?
Her name is Lori Cantillo.
Yeah. And so, do you? And what do you think? Why is that the #1 radio station in America? It is for billing.
You
right?
know what? Yeah, it is. It's really interesting, and not to get too inside radio here, but because they are listened to by Congress and by Hillary Clinton and by all the decision makers, when companies like Boeing or Lockheed, want to make commercials on the radio, they don't care what they spend. It's like, I need to be able to reach these influencers, and you got them.
It's influence. They
Yeah.
have tons of it, and they're a
Yeah.
very well-run news radio station. All right.
Somebody is looking for your book, Bo. They're trying to get it on Kindle. They can't seem to find it. What's the best way to find I Killed Pink Floyd's Pig?
That's a good question. It's on Amazon. I Killed Pink Floyd's Pig. You can also,
It
before
should
you...
be on Kindle then if it's on Amazon.
Well, it's not digital. It's just a book.
Why?
Because
he's old school.
there's a lot of strategic reasons why I want to be able to put the book out and then put it out digitally and then internationally.
Oh,
and
okay.
there's a
It's
whole
good.
part of the
It'll be
plan.
eventually
Oh, yeah,
digital.
it will.
But buy the book first so it looks good for Bo.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, the
Bo
other
needs
thing,
to make a little cash.
There
His
you
wife is very successful.
That's right. I'm not holding up my end. The other thing that you could do is go to pinkfloydspig.com. There's no apostrophes or punctuation. pinkfloydspig.com, and there you can find a couple of sample stories, and you can kind of see if you like the book. You can see some pictures too, because none of the pictures have ever been seen before. There's one picture of Van Halen invading KISW that was too hot for the book. I wasn't allowed to use it, but it's on the website. But we had a time where topless strippers and the band invaded the radio station, and that story is in there with pictures. And then if you're so moved, you can buy the book there, too.
We had a name for that day. I think we called it Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Amazing stuff. Bo, great times in rock and roll with you. The
Thank
book
you.
is really quite fascinating and some real great stories that no one has ever heard before. Our original program director, station manager, Beau Phillips, who hired our show in 1989, and we're coming up on our 25-year anniversary as a show.
Wow.
And Jimmy Kimmel couldn't make it in this business.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I did want to say is that because I'm here and you guys are friends, that for the first 20 people who buy the book today at Pink Floyd's Pig.
I'm sorry, we're out of town.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Jim.
No,
go ahead.
The first 20 people who buy the book at pinkfloydspig.com, I'll send you a signed copy.
Oh,
I might have to be one of those people.
You don't have to. I got a free one
All
for
right,
you. All
good
right.
deal.
I think you should sign 95.
95.
95.7 of them.
All right,
Give someone
well.
3/4 of a signature. Hi, Bo. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Bob. You too.
And I genuinely, thank you so much for being in our lives.
You made me look great,
At
so
a very
thank you.
Crucial time. 8 minutes after.